Hello, and welcome to the War in the Pacific, where the 12th of December, 1941. The forces of Japan have landed on Java, and the Allies intend to make them pay. So we landed most of our troops already in the previous turn. So this is just the last bits of the regiments. And we've broken off a small task force to continue to offload supply, but the main task force will attempt to withdraw. Up here come the Allied response. Sea Lion finds a working Mark 14 torpedo. Oh, PT boat. Let's get past the screen. Now, I expected this task force to have already withdrawn by now, but they did not, or did not get away in time. There's only limited moonlight. It looks like the destroyer screen got between the convoy and the PT boats, which is good. I didn't see it happen, but looks like they hit one of my transports. And I didn't see it happen when we sunk one of the PT boats. Interesting. Of course, these transports have no more troops on board. Just looking through to see the big task force, see how many collisions occurred. We'll know after the fact. a couple motor launches. More PT boats. They sunk a transport for the cost of a couple more PT boats. Well, this is interesting. The Royal Navy shows up. Looks like Marartis is engaging Hyuga. Marartis, as you can tell from the video, is not in great shape. She's got some system damage. She's going to have some more system damage after Naka puts a couple 6 inchers into her boards. See if Hyuga gets into the action. So far, the escort carrier task force has done well, and the Royal Navy didn't get in to attack the carrier. Some 6 inch hits on Hyuga won't damage her significantly, that's for sure. Jupiter is a good modern Royal Navy destroyer. And Moriartis is a good modern Royal Navy light cruiser. The D class cruisers are uh, just about World War One vintage. They may actually be World War One vintage. To be fair, they're fighting uh, Ayuga and Naka, who are both of similar age. Let's see what happened here. So, Royal Navy radar identified the task force, and the Japanese expert says they are at night fighting, couldn't identify with the Mark One eyeball the Allies until they got in close, and Moriartis put a torpedo into Hyuga. It's like these hits on Margis were actually from Naka, not Hyuga, which makes a big difference. But uh, Margis had a lot of her upper works carried away. Hopefully, she lost her radar. Whoa, the Americans show up. It's like Houston, Marblehead, and 5 Fleshdeckers. The Americans don't have radar at this stage, so Ashigara gets hit, uh, but the escorts sink Houston, badly damage Marblehead. Another transport is hit. But nevertheless, the escorts did a fine job. I-164 operating along with a number of other Japanese submarines in the Straits of Malacca looking for ships trying to make the high speed run at night, catches Dominion Monarch. One torpedo won't sink that big transport. Euro was damaged by a Dutch torpedo the turn before. Looks like some enemy. Ah, so this was a smallish transport with supplies that I left to offload to make sure I had enough supplies. She should be nearly empty at this stage uh, of supplies. She didn't have any troops on board, but Everton and then Zerko and Sinker, which I expected. I was short on supplies and I withdrew the main task force, so I had to leave some transports behind to get enough supplies to the troops. Electra, Tenedos, and Vampire bombard Singawang. Doesn't look like they achieved very much. So Evertson is bombarding my troops on Java. That won't. They assume he just set Everton and then as a bombardment task force and raced them in. He may not have expected that bombardment to do much of any good. Since they have a major fleet base to operate, it doesn't really hurt though. They can race back, rearm and refuel and be ready uh, with some ops points lost for next turn. The disadvantage is they expended their ammunition and thus weren't able to catch and sink this small task force. Okay, so I have some small destroyers hunting through the North Philippine Sea because he's routed a number of his ships north and then east of the Philippines to try to escape. So in this case, Wakataki and Yakazi catch up with two transports trying to make their way out of the Philippines. Dutch submarines get one of the damaged transports, and she sinks. Actually, that transport may not have been damaged at the time. So this particular task force has troops on board heading into the Celebes and runs across again some more escapees from the Philippines. Let's see if the Allies have anything else. So I have some destroyers operating off the southern tip of Java, trying to catch anybody making a run for it. Just a couple small AKs or AKLs. Ah, okay. So he has a couple U.S. cruisers just operating the Gilberts. Uh, these World War One era, the post World War One era Japanese destroyers, the small ones, are 35 knot destroyers, and I use them pretty extensively in this area because the American cruisers are only 32 knots, and generally they can break off contact if it's warranted. In this case, they were a fast transport task force anyway, so they made a run for it. Prinz Van Orange, cruiser mine layer, sunk. And the submarine support ship Jens. And the game actually doesn't really fully attempt to represent how important these ASs were. That uh, they were the beating heart of a submarine squadron, providing the pedo maintenance and setup and everything else. The typical port didn't do that, so you you wouldn't generally be able to operate your submarines without the subtenders, even at a large port. But the game doesn't uh, doesn't fully represent that. So he withdrew those submarine tenders, uh, or withdrew that submarine tender. Oh, so I-164 finishes off the Minion Monarch off Sumatra. So we moved on to the air phase. That was a very exciting night action off Java. Um, The transports were only carrying supply at the time they were attacked, but nevertheless, the losses could have been significant because there are some valuable transports in that task force, ones that I will need for phase two operations. But the heavy escorts and light escorts did a fine job. Bit of a surprise that the RN, well, not a surprise given their radar advantage, but the RN was able to get in and surprise the carrier task force, in this case, escort carriers. Oh, I'm losing Val's from Cardiff too, who are actually on ASW patrol. That, those Dutch fighters are tearing up my nav search and, in this case, ASW search. I wonder where they're operating from. It looks like they were on long range cap from Batavia. I'll have to check my altitude settings and see what's going on. Okay, let's see what happens. So I swept Newcastle because I believe he bought out. I know he bought out a P-40E squadron, and I was wondering whether he rushed it down to Sydney area. And I had attempted to bomb Newcastle the turn before, and I wanted to see if he would jump P-40s in. Doesn't appear he did. The other thing here is I was wondering if he would jump P-40s into Hong Kong and try to catch my bombers. He could also send the ABG in, um, either P-40s from the Philippines or the ABG from China. It's a feast on the light bombers. I have some Oscar 1Cs, so they swept. Nothing. Okay, so the ABG is sweeping Canton, probably from Quellen. So which squadron? Doesn't tell me. That's okay. So one of the squadrons of the ABG we know is in China, and in this case tried to catch Cap over Canton. Didn't really have a critical reason to have any cap over Canton. Okay, so attacking resources at Sydney. Looks like weather's okay. Looks like we're going to get some decent results this time. Okay, no losses. So the resource hit 64 sounds underwhelming, but you got to wait and see that that's shall we say preliminary result. That's um that's actually a pretty good result from this two carrier strike. Uh, weather was good. It's um, the weather is actually the driving factor in my experience on your results on these city strikes. That's the first time the weather's let us get much of a strike in other than day one. Mm. So my bombers out of Wuchang strike what turned out just to be a headquarters unit. I've got an armor unit in the hex, so um, that will not end well for that particular headquarters of the Chinese army. my recon in China's not up to full speed yet, so I'm playing a bit of a guessing game as to what I'm striking. And I know the AVG is there, so and I don't have enough fighters, or I don't want to commit at the moment zeros to face the AVG, and I don't have enough Oscar 1Cs, so I kind of have to vary my targets to reduce the risk of getting jumped by the AVG. Those Oscars I did have available in, as you saw previously, I swept Hong Kong in preparation for the Lilies and Sanyas. I really only probably need this last strike on the airfield at Hong Kong to keep forts from being rebuilt, as the battle for Hong Kong is just about over. Mm. See, so he is attacking my troops at Hong Kong, uh, obviously trying to disrupt them enough that it tips the odds in the favor of the defenders. Oh, P40's escorting Vindicators. Vindicators really can't damage the Congos. The Congos are searching for Boise. That's that is a commander's critical information requirement. Did he get Vindicators into the Dutch East Indies? The answer is yes. And he's combined them with P40s as a effective strike package. In this case, they weren't going to damage those two battleships, but it means my light carrier that currently just has Claudes on board, I'm going to have to put some zeros on board because they would not be able to stand up to this. This was actually an interesting decision. I had fainted towards Kopang with my invasion task force, or at least left him with the impression that I was heading that direction or could be heading that direction, and he opted to defend Kopang with this good strike package. I sent the two battleships, really fearing any type of air power he has in this area, uh, at least not without torpedoes, and that turned out to work out in my favor. Now, whether Boise is really here, I think she is, and whether or not the battleships can catch her next turn, she was damaged on turn one or turn two with a single torpedo hit that damaged her engine. So my assumption is she can't make much more than 20, 25 knots. So the fast battleships should be able to run her down if they can figure out which way she's going. Let's see what else happens. Hudson's. Ah, B-17s. Carpet bombing my ground troops. Looks like they did not hit my divisions. Wow, it's a long turn, but a good one. This is why this game is so great. Okay, into the PM phase. So the Vals are reporting lots of hits. Oh, another Val destroyed. But the pilots, as usual, tend to exaggerate their successes, shall we say. All right, those Dutch fighters really are tearing up my search aircraft. Hudsons continue to go after Isuzu. Oh, Wirraways. Interesting. So this is actually the first loss of, or potential loss of a transport with troops on board. And ironically, given my game moniker, nom de guerre of Wirraway East, it comes from enemy Wirraways. They were down low. Good move by him. Easily countered as we approach our target, but okay, let's speed through this. That was an exciting turn. We got the landings at Zendari. Plenty of combat power there to take that base next turn. And now that we know he has Vindicators, we'll go ahead and come up with a plan to neutralize it. Okay, Japanese tanks take Georgetown. Tanks destroy the headquarters units. Deliberate attack on Hong Kong. Okay, we're down to level 1 forts. So the 81st Chinese Corps attacked last turn and wrecked itself. So here's the counterattack. So the counterattack certainly rendered what remained of that core combat truly combat ineffective. Okay, here we go in to take Kalajati, and then we'll immediately move on Batavia. resting my Special Naval Landing Force unit, trying to get enough combat power there to take the base. That may not, I just may not have brought enough troops. Spotlight. Well, that was an exciting turn. Uh, we'll speed through it. The rest of this, and just check on some statuses. So first, let's check to see what happened with our carrier aircraft. So Shokaku with some Tainen-ku fighters aboard to buffer cap. Looks like she lost 3 vowels with 1 pilot KIA. They were conducting ASW operations, low altitude, effective range of 3. So that's probably what was happening, is he was capping over Kalachati to protect his surface units in case any got stuck there. And it looks like my vowels ran afoul of them. As Shokaku's losses look more significant. Nope, sorry, we just did Shokaku. Let's check Zuikaku. So Zuikaku lost vowels, but only 1 pilot WA. Ah, okay, that's okay. It looked uglier as the combat results were coming in. And let's just check. So this is my Cocos Island Invasion Task Force. They're in good shape. I've got minesweepers to sweep the Sunda Straits in case he put mines there. Surface Task Force to clear out those ships. So we're going to make a breakout through the Sunda Strait to invade Cocos Island. Want to make sure I get there before the British can get there with one of their Indian brigades that are at sea. It's always a race because Cocos can be a difficult nut to crack if you let the British keep there in strength. I don't have particularly good nav search results here, but I can be confident that it's sort of Baja where all the Allied naval power that is available had consolidated. But with the loss of Houston, they're down to really just Mauritius, who's damaged pretty heavily now. A couple of the C-class cruisers and some destroyers. So my next, well, let's check these guys. This was the task force that got in the tussle. So these could have been hits or could have been uh, from collisions. Those look like collisions. So none in grave danger of sinking. We'll break off a task force ahead to Frontenac um, to do any basic repairs. The more this AP was badly damaged. She will try to get her back to Frontenac to repair, but we may not be able to. Same with this subchaser. Okay, but our next invasion task force, so our escort carriers are separated. We'll move them back in. Hyuga from that torpedo hit, only 12 major though. That's still quite a bit of yard time, but he did her job protecting the escort carrier. So Chayota task force with Nagato and Issei and some destroyers. I'll have to reconfigure um, my escorts a bit, but this task force is going to land next turn at Samarang to take that level 5 port, just in case the battle for Batavia is more protracted. I really feel I need a base of operations on northern Java um, to support ongoing future operations, though my alternate plan, and actually uh, probably the primary plan now, is I'm taking Georgetown. I'm going to, it's a level 4 port. I have enough naval support available approximate that I'm going to move um, the 500 plus naval support I need to Georgetown, and I can get it from Cam Bay and Saigon on time. And as long as I can sweep the mines here, Cardiff 2 and other surface units can operate out of Georgetown uh, to patrol the Bay of Bengal uh, and conduct further operations on India. So Northern Java isn't an absolute critical issue, but we'll move on. Doesn't look like we'll have to do recon and figure out his troop dispositions, but we're going to send a recon unit to block the rail line here while the main force moves on Batavia so that he can't rail in any more troops, at least from southern Java, to reinforce the tough base at Bangdawing. So that's the plan for Java. What we'll get zeros from Tainenku on board Luruho and set our clods aside. So we're prepared to deal with the Vindicators escorted by the P-40s. I think we're close. 2 turns probably to take Hong Kong. Um, and we're going to start loading these divisions to move to the Malaya. Meanwhile, most of our troop concentration is focused on getting to Soyatsu. We're going to, this is a tough base, has its own light industry, and it's in Time Street terrain. It doesn't look like he's heavily reinforcing it, but we're going to grab it, then launch our attack this way towards Xi'an, probably, or Nanking Highway, depending on what we're able to do with this armor unit functioning as a small operational maneuver group in his rear. So we'll see how this develops over the next couple of days. And tanks will continue to race down towards Kuala Lumpur and then Malacca. We're going to try to slow the march of this one regiment here, and depending on how well he's defended it, we'll try to grab Tumalo with paratroopers to cut off this one regiment. We have it's brigade, sorry. We have 2 brigades isolated up here, and the 5th Division is almost in this hex. The 5th Division and the 6th Royal Thai Army will mop up these forces while I bring in my divisions from Wenchao and Hong Kong for the final assault by the end of the month on Singapore. And in the South Pacific, So far, he's chasing ghosts with his cruisers as we sort of rope a dope. Uh, he These guys aren't sighted yet. They're going to take Reef Island to establish a seaplane base while the main task force moves on, escorted by two Aobas and eventually four Aobas towards New Caledonia. My carriers will operate one more turn off Sydney, depending on how the weather, and then they'll move. They're going to feint towards Auckland. I have these raiders down south, and I'm going to see if I can get him to purge his shipping in New Zealand and try to get it out and gives the raiders some targets. But Cardiffs 1 and 2 are actually going to, after feinting towards New Zealand, make for New Caledonia to support operations there. Anyway, what a great turn. What a great game. And I look forward to our next chance